Hi, this is Zach here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Tuesday, the 20th of May. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is soaring after yesterday's ripping off of Great British Fishermen for, I think, another 12 years. So obviously the market enjoying that immensely. The previous call here was at above that resistance line there from March, around 85.90, call it 8600 basically. We're looking for that green resistance line projection from April last year as high as 9,000. We're looking for that by the end of next month. Worst case on the downside is currently around the 50-day line there, 84.70, or at a stretch, the bottom of the pre-tariff range, which was around 84.80. RSI at 67, so not yet overbought, which is a plus and gives a little bit of gas in the tank for a further move. Overall, this is a sort of massive inverted head and shoulders with a very long head there, and we're just breaking the neckline resistance from back in March around current levels. Moving on to the DAX, which I presume if the FTSE is rising, the DAX would also be rising, not quite, but here we're above the old resistance there from March, 23,500, and been looking for the top of the rising trend channel there from back in April last year as high as 24,400 now, actually, by the end of this month. Moving on to the Dow, which has been the sickly child amongst the leading indices, but even here, we've broken that line of resistance there from February. That was around 42,500. Looking eagerly for the next level up, which is 44,000, and obviously the highs of the year and record highs. But the best case scenario here is by the end of next month, we remain within the rising red trend channel there from May last year, 42,000, and head up to 47,000. That would obviously be quite a coup, but we've had 2/3 bounces for the RSI above neutral 50, so there is a technical basis for that. The other point to note is that the 200-day line's rising and the 50-day moving average is just about to rise, probably after today's price action, so that does mean we will be heading into a golden cross. And the golden cross tends to be or the run-up to one tends to be the strongest part in the cycle. Moving on to Bitcoin, where there was a chance that we could get up to 120,000 by the end of this month. I suppose theoretically there's still a chance that we could do that. 122,000, in fact, the top of that rising trend channel from back in March last year. That's possible by the end of next month, I suppose, but at least while we're above the recent resistance around 103,000, there is a chance of maybe a quick spike up to the 120,000 area. What's also interesting at the moment is the way that the 50 and 200-day lines are both probably about 2 or 3 days away from a golden cross. So this is, again, the strongest part of the cycle, or should be, and therefore we have the outside chance of getting up to 120k very quickly. Moving on to gold, and here still hanging on in there. The key here is the 50-day moving average. We've had 2 tests of that now, and also the floor of that rising, rather overly steep rising trend channel that we've got there since the beginning of March. The floor of the channel there around 3,200, 50-day line 3170. So with 3170, any dips to that regarded as a buying opportunity. RSI is on the wrong side of neutral 50, but at least the 50-day line is still rising. I suppose near term 3270 is recent resistance, and that needs to be broken to give us progress within that rising trend channel. Top of the channel they're heading for 3830, which is now the target maybe for the end of next month rather than the end of this month, because we have rather staggered along in May. Moving along to the stocks, and just starting off with Angus Energy, where the company erroneously mentions a reverse takeover regarding assets in the Gulf of Mexico, which seems to be completely wrong, because obviously it's now the Gulf of America. But apart from that, we have bounced off a falling support line there from back in September, and barring suspensions and this and that and everything else, the top of the range towards 0.28. But interesting that the company doesn't know much about geography, apparently. Moving on to ASA, which has gapped up remarkably over the last few sessions, or at least since last week. Top of the channel there, heading for £2.20. That's what we're looking for by the end of next month. That's the top of a rising trend channel from the end of 2024. And looking for that, especially while we're on the right side of that gap floor there, around £1.38. Ideally, we stay above the 140 to 145 area. Moving along to the situation at Capai, and here you can see that the shares have blown the doors off the previous target. We were looking for rather churlishly, or rather tentatively rather, for 0.65, 0.66, and that's been blown away. Next level up is actually 1.1 pence, which was support on the way down, way back in the good old days of 2023, and looking for that by the end of next month, especially while we remain above recent resistance at 0.6, so about 0.6 basically looking for the 1.1, 1.2 area on Capai. Next up is the situation at Sell AI, and here just the first hint that we're bouncing above a rising 50-day line. They call that the sideways shuffle. Also bouncing around the neutral 50 level, so that is positive, or above the neutral 50 level. So looking for another spike in the shares. Can't say exactly when, but I suppose if we break a line of resistance, which I'm just about to draw now, around the 0.25 level, that could be the trigger for a move to the upside. Upside rather, while we're above the 50-day moving average at 0.21. Might be just worth looking at Catenai as well while we're in the C's, and here you can see that we've got this rising trend channel, top of the channel there, heading for 0.8, and we're looking for that by the end of next month while we remain above the recent support area around 0.4, so that looks reasonably healthy as well. RSI also healthy in the sense it's at 56. In the mid-50s is the box seat for potential moves to the upside. Next up, EKF, which I managed to avoid in the RNS hot list, but it seems to be moving well now, bouncing above the 200-day line, which if you look closely looks as though it's rising, as is the 50-day line. That means we should be a surefire winner in terms of getting towards 34 pence, the top of the range, but only while we're above that 200-day line at 25 pence, which hopefully will come to pass. On to Fragrant Prosperity, which is one of the many recent small cap winners. Here you can see that we've broken recent neckline resistance either at 1.35 or 1.45, but anywhere above 1.45. Looking for the top of the range and the top of the channel there as high as 2.7 pence by the end of next month. Ideally we stay within that rising trend channel that I have just drawn. RSI remains above neutral 50 as well, which is quite an achievement. Quite less dramatic as Hardide, and here we've got the 50 and 200-day lines there as support, top of the range and the top of the channel, rising trend channel base from February last year, heading for 9.6 pence, and we're looking for that by the end of next month. Moving on to Luceco, and here a bit of a rangy situation, but the gap higher last week and the way that the 50 and 200-day lines are starting to sort of curl up suggests that we should get up to 180 pence by the end of next month while we're above recent support around £1.45. Metals one is next, and here I suppose the interesting part is that with after yesterday's rug pull, or during yesterday's rug pull, people might have thought that the party's over, but actually all that actually happened was that the shares hit the floor of that rising trend channel at 33 pence. They were a slight overshoot and have now resumed their rally. I suppose one could tighten up that channel a little bit, so we're heading for the 70 pence area maybe by the end of next month, while we're above the low 30s, so 33, 32, that kind of thing. But interesting that we have bounced after the rug pull and in the wake of today's news. Oriole is next, and here we've got a falling trend channel, top of the channel there at 0.3 pence. Looking for that hopefully over the next 2 to 4 weeks. RSI rebound above neutral 50 and a rising 50-day line. So hopefully that is the minimum on the upside. If you're an optimist, you would be looking for 0.31, 0.32, and the channel to be as I have just adjusted it. Well, never a dull moment at the smarter web, and the reason for that is that the shares are trying to eke out the floor of a rising trend channel. Obviously not much charting data to go on, but we've been generally right here, looking for a buy at 15 and then a buy at 25, and so far we managed to stay above 25. Above that, still looking for a big win. Obviously a retest of the 50 area, but perhaps as high as 75 pence as a best case scenario target by the end of next month. Below 25, then there is the issue of a potential retest of 20 pence, but hopefully nothing worse than that. The last two, the first one is TruFin, and here a nice move to the upside, gap to the upside. I think we covered this a few days ago. That means that we can probably upgrade the top of the channel there to 110 pence, and that's valid while we hold above the floor of the gap there at 83 pence. 50 and 200 day lines both rising for a potential extra golden cross. We already had one in December, so let's see how that works out. Finishing off with a sort of joker in the pack, which is the Revel Collective, and here we were looking for a turnaround with the sideways shuffle along the lows and the floor of that rising trend channel base, and above recent resistance of 0.22, looking for a best case scenario by the end of next month up to the 200-day moving average around 0.5 pence. And obviously, as I said, we need to hold that 0.22 level. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.